Israel holds over 8,000 Palestinians in detention. 2,000 of those are held in what's called administrative detention, which means they are held without charge, without trial. 200 of them are children. And Israel should release all of the prisoners who are held illegitimately as part of a tool of enforcing military occupation. So we have to deal with the root causes. This demands both sides respect international law.
Administrative detention is a form of preventative detention whereby people are held without trial or charge based on secret information. International humanitarian law only allows administrative detention to be used as a temporary, exceptional measure. Israel's sweeping use of administrative detention, it is holding several thousand Palestinians in administrative detention, many for prolonged periods, more than 50 years into its occupation, is unlawful.
17-year-old Musa al-Oridat, for example, didn't know the cause for his arrest when Israeli forces pulled him from his bed at 5 a.m. after raiding his home. Ahmed Qatamesh came to be called a prisoner of conscience after spending years behind bars without being granted a trial or convicted of any crime. 16-year-old Jihad Yusuf's detention was arbitrarily extended by Israeli authorities despite a court order approving his release on bail. These are just 3 cases, but there are 3,291 Palestinians currently being held as administrative detainees in Israeli prisons.
Administrative detention involves the Israeli government's use of many abusive tactics. First, people held in administrative detention are held without charge or trial. It's based on secret information. Those being held in administrative detention often have little to no information on what basis they are being held under. They have almost no recourse to challenge the basis for their detention. Judges routinely renew these administrative detention orders.
With the great uncertainty Palestinian detainees face, there are not many options but to wait. Yet some, like Maher al-Akhras, refused to accept indefinite ambiguity and held a 103-day hunger strike in 2020 to protest his detention without trial. Putting his life in danger, Maher was able to urge international organizations to call for his immediate release. But this didn't stop Israeli authorities from continuing their arbitrary arrests.
Many of those held in Israeli detention, including in administrative detention, are mistreated and tortured. That is routine in Israeli detention as well. And those held in many cases have been held for exercise of their legitimate rights, including free expression, assembly, and association.
International organizations like Amnesty International reported a dramatic spike in the number of Palestinian detainees since October 7th. Not to mention that the number of administrative detainees was already at a 20-year high before Hamas's attack.
For months, Fatma's family say they were denied access, even as her detention stretched on.
It was forbidden for my relatives to visit me, or even the lawyers. I was not allowed to make any calls.
Israel says Fatma attempted murder, and yet she was only detained, not charged. She didn't go to trial. She wasn't given any opportunity to defend herself. And this is a story we keep hearing again and again from released prisoners, that they aren't given due process, and yet this crime exists alongside their names.
The Israeli Prison Service responded to these allegations, saying national security prisoners who were released from the Israeli prison during the past 2 days were serving time for serious crimes, such as attempted murder, assault, and throwing explosives. All prisoners in IPS custody are held according to the law. That's not true. CNN broke down the numbers in a list of 300 Palestinian prisoners identified by Israel as eligible for release. 80% are listed as just detained, which means they have not been formally sentenced. Israel operates 2 systems of law in the occupied territories. Palestinians under the military, Israelis under civil law, creating a low bar for the arrest of increasing numbers of Palestinians.
During their 75 years under Israeli occupation, the arrest and detention of Palestinians, most often without charge, trial, or justification, has been a very deliberate method of intimidation. Men, women, and even children taken into custody. Some of them not even in their teens, scared and vulnerable. Israeli raids in the dead of night throughout the West Bank have become routine. This one in the town of Hebron. Families startled, helpless. A mother cries out desperately as she sees her daughter blindfolded and taken into custody. She has no idea why she's being arrested. Over a month later, her daughter Bara has still not been charged, but remains detained.
It's called keeping a single standard. You want to talk about the 290 Israeli hostages? I say fine. But then let's talk about the 2,300,000 Gazan hostages.
I understand your point of hypocrisy.
I'm saying,
but
no,
whether you think Hamas should be
everyone to a single standard.
Why you want to let us go?